P battles the puppet and defeats him. Moving on, P approaches Hotel Krat. Now, puppets are not allowed entry to the hotel, so P is asked a simple question. Is he human? If he says that he's a puppet, then he isn't able to gain entry. P can also lie and say he's human, and this is a very important decision that will change the course of P's destiny. P enters the hotel. The hotel itself used to be an ancient castle. The castle was at one point turned into a mental hospital and a rehabilitation facility. It was purchased by a very wealthy woman, was renovated, and then subsequently turned into a hotel. Inside, P meets with Sophia. She tells P that she has searched all over the city of Krat in order to find him. She tells him that although he has questions, Giuseppe Geppetto will have the answers to those questions, but his current whereabouts are unknown. With his last known location being one of the scariest neighborhoods in Krat. P also meets with the others there in the hotel. The owner of the hotel, Antonia, who is coughing in a wheelchair and is very sick, suffering from a mysterious disease called the petrification disease, and this disease has already ravaged the city of Krat, killing many. He also meets Antonia's puppet butler Polendina and a weaponsmith named Eugenie, who can provide P with some pretty cool upgrades, which, of course, will help P battle his way through the streets of Krat. Leaving the hotel, Gemini warns P about a group called the Black Rabbit Brotherhood. Nonetheless, P has made it to the entrance to Elysian Boulevard. Heading through the streets of Elysian Boulevard, which was once bustling with the wealthy people of Krat, P finds more frenzied puppets. Coming to the Alchemist's Bridge, P comes across a grisly sight. A puppet has been hung from the bridge, and I notice on it says, "Purge Puppets." Crossing the bridge, P hears a man shouting for Geppetto to come out as he has a lot to answer for, but he knows exactly why the puppet frenzy happened, as Geppetto made the puppets. But he and a group called the Alchemists were scheming together. Seeing P, the man known as the Mad Donkey, is filled with rage and fights him. P defeats the hostile human and saves Geppetto. Geppetto addresses P as son and says he understands why people are annoyed at him. He says that he needs to take care of the frenzied puppets at City Hall and asks for P's help in doing so. Geppetto, meanwhile, will go back to Hotel Krat. Pushing on, P arrives at City Hall and walks inside. He's confronted by the Scrap Watchman. The Scrap Watchman is another massive creation, a puppet known as Murphy, who was designed to guard the courtyard but also entertained and was friends with the children of Krat. His friends and the children were killed in the frenzy, and he's there to get revenge on their behalf. Again, this puppet is ferocious, but P manages to defeat him. Heading back to Hotel Krat, P speaks with Geppetto, who has set up a workshop in one of the hotel's upper rooms. He mentions a puppet factory beyond Elysian Boulevard, and there's a man, an inventor, trapped there named Vanini. Geppetto needs P to save Vanini and to shut down the factory. Heading out once again, P heads into the factory, and making his way through it and fighting off more puppets, he comes across a mysterious pair. The Red Fox and the Black Cat, who are a pair of what's called stalkers. They refer to P as a stalker, and say that him getting there in one piece is impressive. They speak of this benefiting their former client, who was Vanini himself. They wish P luck. He eventually finds Vanini. He's hiding and initially thinks that P is going to kill him. Realizing that P is not hostile, Vanini says that he needs help finding his butler, Pulcinella. He says that the stalkers were meant to be working for him, but they abandoned him and the factory. Pulcinella went to barricade the back door, but has not returned. So he heads for the back door, and he encounters Fuoco, the King's Flame. He's guarding the doorway. He's been the one keeping the factory running and has been creating more puppets. Endless reinforcements, if you will. As you imagine, Fuoco uses fire as one of his many forms of offense, but after a tough fight, P takes Fuoco down. After defeating Fuoco, Vanini and Pulcinella are back at Hotel Krat and are safe. P's next task is to head to the St. Frangelico Cathedral to save its Archbishop Andreas, who was instrumental in the cathedral having taken in so many refugees when the puppet frenzy started. P also learns that the puppets are taking orders and are following the Puppet King. With the factory now shut down, P pushes on and leaves the factory through the back doors. After withdrawing from the mine, P comes to a small town called Moonlight Town. P arrives at a cable car and speaks with someone known as the Toad. She warns him that the cathedral is not the sanctuary it once was, and that people who went up there never returned. Therefore, the cathedral is off limits, forever. She does, however, say that if he wishes to pass, he must confirm his identity. She asks P a simple question: is he a stalker? If he does nothing, then he must fight the Atoned, and after this he obtains the key for the cable car and is free to ascend. If he answers yes by giving the stalker a greeting, the Atoned is intrigued, saying that she thought the stalkers all died in something called the Battle of the Workshop Tower. She then gives him the key to the Fulghor railway. Having ascended, he spots something, a former human carcass. There are many, and they are very hostile. Fighting his way through the carcasses, he arrives at the key. He speaks with a man named Giangio. He's an alchemist who was fearful for his life for a moment as he believed that P was from the organization. He explains that he's looking for the legendary gold coin fruit, as he believes it contains the cure for the petrification disease, as he has the disease himself. He asks P to let him know if he manages to find it. Fighting through many more carcasses and moving deeper into the cathedral, P sees something in there. He meets Cecile, a nun who says that she serves the Archbishop, but that she's the only one left, with the others having died from either the petrification disease or from the monsters. She asks P to bring her the holy mark from the Archbishop's quarters. He can choose whether or not to help Cecile out. If he does, returning to her, she thanks him, but later on, it seems that she's disappeared. She's left a confession stating that she's murdered people in the past, and that she is a monster. He meets a strange fellow too, going by the name of Alidoro the Hound. He's a treasure hunter. He asks if P knows of a safe place, and here P has another choice, whether to lie or to tell the truth. If he tells the truth, Alidoro will make the journey to the safety of Hotel Krat. The weaponsmith, Eugenie, seems to have a close relationship with Alidoro, and she's glad that he's safe. She says that despite having lost most of her memories from her past, she remembers that Alidoro actually saved her life once. Moving on, P enters a large room and encounters the monster that he saw earlier and that he's heard about. This is the mutated form of the Archbishop Andreas, the once highly respected and influential priest. He was so respected that people even thought that he could well have been Saint Frangelico himself. They called him the Saint of Krat. This gargantuan grotesque mess of flesh is a tough enemy for sure, but eventually P manages to give the Archbishop his rest and puts him down. After defeating him though, something happens. The ergo that was laying inside the puppets that P had defeated, the Archbishop, Wako, the Trade Master and the Scrapped Watchman, is being extracted and is being collected via a contraption in a large tower. A mysterious man sits there saying the stage is set, and he then starts laughing to himself. Heading back to the hotel and speaking with Vanini, he gives P something he's created called an ergo wavelength decoder. Created for the purpose of finding error in the puppet's imprint, this device allows him to decipher the ergo wavelengths of the frenzied puppets, as he wants to work out what's making them so aggressive. He needs to head to the Malum district and leaves the cathedral. In order to get to the Malum district, he must travel by the path of the pilgrim. It's a very dangerous path to walk, with many beasts and carcasses blocking the way, including a massively mutated carcass from the slums. But after defeating them all, he comes to a bridge and is addressed by someone inside a fortress. They say that they have an intruder, P, so they send another huge carcass after him. Unfortunately for them, P easily defeats it and heads into the fortress. Inside, he hears the voice again, and this time the person says that a nasty puppet has invaded their territory, and for the people in the district to be careful. Walking the streets of the Malum district, P comes into contact with the Red Fox and the Black Cat again. They are, again, impressed by P surviving his battle with Fuoco. They want to team up, and P can choose whether or not to accept. Whatever he chooses, he fights his way through the rain-soaked streets, and eventually comes to another large, open area. P is confronted by the Black Rabbit Brotherhood. They are wanted due to various crimes such as stealing bodies, and they've taken over the Malum district after the Battle of the Workshop Tower and have been terrorizing and exploiting the neighborhood, offering their protection services from carcasses and puppets. After catching people on their territory or interfering with their business, they throw them in what's called the Liar's Coffin. Fighting them, the only one that really matters is the older brother. And after taking him out, the other Black Rabbits are distraught and decide to walk away but state their desire for revenge or something in the future. Heading into the town hall, P spots a portrait that looks exactly like himself. Grabbing the portrait, P sees Giangio again. He says that he found the gold coin tree, but that he couldn't pick the fruit off said tree as it has actually burnt his hand. Opening the door, it's revealed that the gold coin tree has been in the grounds of Hotel Krat the entire time. Speaking with Geppetto and giving him the portrait from the town hall, he's taken aback by it, saying that the Black Rabbit Brotherhood was stolen. Geppetto tells P to go to Rosa Isabel Street, which apparently was the epicenter of the puppet frenzy. P needs to go there and take down the King of Puppets, as then, hopefully, puppets will become confused and leaderless. Grabbing the key from Antonia, P heads to Rosa Isabel Street. He learns about Adelina Corday, a legendary singer who regularly performed there as the singer in the red dress, as the place was the arts and entertainment district. He later, after fighting through the puppet-filled streets, comes across Adelina's sister Patricia, a stalker who goes by the name The White Lady. She's convinced that Adelina is dead, killed by puppets, and that she needs to avenge her, so P fights her and is forced to kill her. After this, he comes across Julian the Gentleman, who, it appears, was the first person to marry a puppet. P can choose to help Julian by retrieving the wedding ring from his wife Melody's body. Finding her body and returning the item, P has a choice to make, as Julian asks him if puppets are capable of love. He can lie and say that she left him a message saying she loves him, or he can say that puppets are not capable of loving a human. Either way, P presses on, fighting through more frenzied puppets and fighting absolute douchebags such as the Mad Clown Puppet. P gains entry to the Estella Opera House. Fighting his way through the Opera House, P can come across Adelina in her dressing room, hiding and very much alive, but infected with the petrification disease. The disease has caused her to lose her voice, and she asks P to find her some fruit. He then returns with an apple, and she confesses that her sister actually had a better voice than her, so she poisoned her. Her locket shows a deep hatred and jealousy towards her sister, with the picture inside the locket appearing to have been slashed. Leaving her to succumb to the disease, P then pushes forward and enters a large set of doors. Something has been set up for P's arrival. It shows an old man who looks remarkably like Geppetto, taking the mechanical heart out of a puppet that looks remarkably like P and walking over to place it inside another puppet. This puppet then stands up and the show ends. A massive puppet drops down and extends a hand to P, but he slaps it away, enraging the massive puppet. With the puppet now turning hostile, he must do battle. This is the King of Puppets, the puppet that all the puppets in Krat have been following. After defeating the King of Puppets, the battle is not yet over, as someone emerges from the machine. This is Romeo. P must defeat him too. After their fight, he thanks P for giving him freedom. If he heads to Adelina's dressing room again, he'll see that she has succumbed to the petrification disease. Heading backstage, P finds Geppetto there waiting for him. He says that now the King of Puppets is dead, the lesser puppets and the puppet frenzy will hopefully die down soon, as they're now leaderless. He says that the petrification disease still lingers, and tells P that he needs to go to the Grand Exhibition, as he's heard rumours that the alchemists there have developed a cure for it. P heads down the Charity House path, and he soon comes to the Lorenzini Arcade, a shopping district, and it's populated by carcasses. Taking out these carcasses, P heads through the arcade, which is full of decay and death, and heading through a perilous wine cellar, P comes out at the exit and is outside the Grand Exhibition. He finds a tram and takes a ride to the next platform. Inside the exhibition's gallery, P must fight through many frenzied robots. He meets a survivor, Belle, who mentions people at the Grand Exhibition having taken a drug. She also talks of biological experiments too. Pushing further through the exhibition, he finds vats containing a strange liquid, potentially the drug that Belle was referring to. He's also attacked by strange individuals with guns. A bit further on, after defeating a gargantuan enemy, P comes face to face with Champion Victor, a boxer who had been brought back to life by the alchemists. This Hercules of Krat is talking of evolution becoming real. Defeating him at first sees him pumped full of the drug, and P defeats him again during his second phase. Before P is able to finish Victor off though, he is finished off by an individual clad head to toe in armour. P then sees the mysterious man who is extracting and collecting Ergo from enemies being defeated. He applauds P. His name is Simon Manus, and he's the leader of the alchemists. He tells P that Ergo is a crystallized form of human life essence. Souls, basically. And it being human essence is why it works so well with puppets. He mentions an elixir, the drug that P has been seeing throughout the exhibition and that Belle referred to. He goes on to invite P to a place called the Isle of the Alchemists and witness their triumph for himself. After Simon leaves, P heads for a tram and speaks with Red Fox and the Black Cat again. Red Fox says they're in a bind. It turns out that Black Cat has the petrification disease and is losing his sight. He needs to find gold coin fruit. It gets him from the alchemists, as they're working for them, but never enough to actually cure him, a way to effectively keep these two in their employ. So P can choose whether or not to help these two tricksters out by giving them some gold coin fruit, or to deny them. Either way, he moves on, and speaking with Vanini, he learns that in order to get to the Isle of Alchemists, their secret island, he will need a special fuel source, a golden ergo, in order to power a special vehicle that Vanini designed. He gets on the tram. The tram takes him to a place called the Barren Swamp, a former coal mine that is now essentially a dumping ground for discarded and worthless puppets that have outlived their usefulness. And this is where the golden ergo will be located. He fights various puppets, dodging discarded remnants, and he also meets Alidoro there. He says that he is there as a terrible monster lives on the cliff at the end of the swamp. It behaves like a crow gathering shiny things. Maybe this is where P will find the golden ergo. Further into the barren swamp, he can come across a human survivor. This is the Owl Doctor, who was the lover of Adelina Corday. He is extremely hostile to P, and after a fight, he is put to rest. Moving on again and making his way through a ravine which is populated by carcasses, he manages to reach the cliffs. He feels the ground shaking and generally states that it came from the direction of Krat Central Station. He meets a rookie explorer named Hugo. He mentions Alidoro by name and mentions that he's a fan. He tried to follow Alidoro's tracks but hit a dead end. He speaks of certain rumours about Alidoro, about fraud, theft and assault, but Hugo attributes them to jealousy. Apparently though, Alidoro is wanted. He says that Alidoro saved loads of lives in the workshop tower collapse. He then finds a journal, a sentry's notebook. He was sent out to deal with the monster in the swamp, but didn't realise just how big it actually was, so he reported it. However, his team was denied backup. The sentry mentions that the monster knew that they were there. Entering a clearing, P comes face to face with the aforementioned monster. In line with what the sentry wrote, the monster is huge and grotesque. It's so big because it's been feeding on ergo from the discarded puppets in the swamp. Its nest is littered with ergo-depleted puppets. The creature is ferocious, and after a long battle which becomes tougher as it rages on, the green monster of the swamp merges with what could be the now discarded body of the scrap watchman. P eventually defeats the disgusting creature and retrieves the golden ergo. Alidoro is there waiting for him. He says that P acted as the perfect bait for him to be able to grab the last hero's weapon. He gives P a nickname, Alidoro's best bait, and Alidoro then returns to Hotel Krat. Anyway, P has a job to do, so he pushes forward and a series of tunnels take him back to where this all started, Krat Central Station. Returning to Vanini with the golden ergo, he is delighted and says that the alchemists ordered Vanini to design transportation for them, to be powered by the golden ergo, and that he thinks it will be in their underground base. The problem is that Vanini doesn't actually know where their base is. He tells P that Antonia may know where it is, and he gives him a golden lead acid battery, which he can use to power the transportation. Speaking with Antonia, she says that the passage connected to the underground base is actually right underneath the hotel, and it's precisely where ergo was first discovered. Unfortunately, the passage is locked until someone from their side opens it. Finally, Antonia says that she has heard some of the alchemists occupy the collapsed tower of the train station. Going to the station, P hears Sophia's voice over the ergo waves and says that what's happening there at the station is an ergo amplification effect. Asking him to find out what's happening, he finds his way through the station. In the workshop train where he woke up, he can find a letter written by Simon, addressed to him, telling him that he is able to read someone's memories through the ergo. He talks of a relic being returned to their sacred place, and the doors will now open. He finishes the letter by calling P a good guide. Emerging from the station, carcasses roam the streets of Krat now. He has to fight puppets that have been corrupted too. He then arrives at the collapsed workshop tower. Fighting his way up the tower, defeating various enemies, he makes it to the top and is confronted by the Walker of Illusions. This enemy is tough and creates a duplicate of himself, an illusion. Despite this challenge, he prevails and defeats the Walker of Illusions. Descending in an elevator, it shakes from another earthquake. He hears the voice of Sophia telling him that the hotel is under attack. He also hears the voice of Simon too. He says that Geppetto's lies will be useless in the new world. In order to get back to the hotel, as the Stargazer isn't working, he must do battle with the Parade Master again, only this time he's corrupted and he's got friends. Defeating him again, P arrives at the hotel. The place has been ransacked, and the mark of the Black Rabbit Brotherhood is clear as day. The Stalkers have kidnapped Geppetto. She says that although the Black Rabbits did it, she senses that this is the work of Simon. Checking on everyone on the second floor, it seems that Geppetto was all that they were after. Antonia, revealing that she had lied beforehand, says that by playing a special chord on the piano, the portrait for the secret passageway will open. Before leaving, Eugenie said that Alidoro disappeared during the attack on the hotel. P then opens up the secret passageway. P is now in the relic of Trismegistus, which may sound like an item, but is actually a location. Ergo stalactites hang and protrude from the walls of the cave, encased inside a mineral known as crowd. He makes his way through it, through the combat grounds, and into another large open area, where he is confronted once again by the Black Rabbit Brotherhood. After fighting against and kicking the asses of the remaining 3 siblings, a surprise is in store for P. It seems that thanks to the alchemists, they've resurrected their older brother, who is even more powerful than before. But after another tense battle, he defeats the Black Rabbit Brotherhood for good this time. Speaking with Vanini back at the hotel, he says that thanks to the Ergo wavelength decoder that he gave to P, the puppets, as well as being compelled by the Grand Covenant, were communicating with each other via the wavelengths. Vanini is surprised and excited, as they were not built with that kind of intelligence. He deciphered one of the wavelengths, but found considerable noise in the signal, and this is what he'd heard.
Ow. Even hear me? The laws of the Grand Covenant bind us. We're his puppets. First law, all puppets must obey their creator's commands. Law 0. The creator's name is Geppetto. Giuseppe Geppetto.
Vanini then says that they need to find Geppetto, and with that bombshell, P carries on through the area and comes face to face with Alidoro again, who is cowering in fear. He tells him that the Red Fox and the Black Cat have got Geppetto, and they took a submarine going to the Alchemist's Isle. Asking why he betrayed the hotel, he says that the Alchemists told him they'd help him escape from the city. He talks about someone who is annoying, and he's talking about Eugenie. He then drops a bombshell confession and says that he's not really the famous Alidoro. He's Alidoro's partner. Well, former partner. He killed Alidoro in an argument. We'll go into this a bit later, but this guy is called Parrot. Choosing to either kill or spare Parrot, he moves on and calls up the submarine. Arriving at Alchemist's Isle, he sees Sophia there, and she reveals that the Sophia he's been speaking with at the hotel isn't the real her, nor is this one. It's just a projection. She's actually located at the upper part of the Abbey. She says that she became Simon's tool a long time ago and has endured a lot of pain. Her goal was not for Pete to save Krat, but to save her. She wants Pete to grant her freedom, death, in order for her body and her spirit, separated for a long time, to reunite in peace. Moving up the beach, Pete sees someone else's memories. A young boy being abandoned by his father, and the young boy is being spoken to by a much younger Sophia. He also sees memories of the young boy making friends with another young boy, and the two were training to be stalkers. He sees the young boy, now a young man, trying to plead with a legendary stalker to teach him how to use a sword, but the stalker was annoyed at the young man's annoying persistence. But eventually the young boy died of the petrification disease. Moving on up the beach and into some ruins, he defeats the massive door guardian. Making his way through the Arch Abbey, he mows down many carcasses and hostile alchemists. Eventually, having ascended the Abbey, he comes face to face with Black Cat. He demands some gold coin fruit, again, or he'll have to fight him. Choosing what to do, P moves on regardless. Having made his way up to the top of the Abbey, he comes face to face with Laxasia the Complete, the imposing right hand of Simon Manus. She stands in the way of progress, so a fight ensues. She's unbelievably strong, but nonetheless, after a long battle, P manages to defeat her. With her dead, something happens to the tower behind her. P must hurry. Entering the tower, P finds the real Sophia. True to what she said earlier, she is truly suffering and hooked up to a machine that draws her power. She asks him to save her, and P is now faced with a choice. He can either leave her be, prolonging her suffering, or he can end the suffering for her. Whatever option he chooses, P continues on up the tower, and eventually comes across the Red Fox, who is there waiting for him. She basically says that the things that she has done have all been in the pursuit of her brother being able to see again. She says that she doesn't want to fight P, but will do what she needs to do. So, you've guessed it, she asks for a gesture and can choose whether or not to give gold coin fruit. If P does, then she allows him to pass. If not, then the two must face off. After being let through or fighting, P continues on and speaks with Geppetto, who is safe. He speaks of wanting P to grow up in a peaceful world, but he must ask P of one last thing. He says that Simon has gone completely mad and is trying to become a god by using a large amount of ergo and a relic called the Arm of God. Geppetto wants P to ascend the tower and put an end to Simon's plans. Atop the tower, P approaches Simon. The ergo had transformed him into a monster. Even with the reality of what he has turned into, he's still awestruck by the magnificence of the ergo, calling it distilled immortality and the key that opens the door to a world with no lies, only truth, and one that unlocks true evolution. Avoiding his giant ergo hammer, after he takes enough damage, he laughs and says that this is evolution. He then demonstrates that by discarding his fragile body, and according to him, by grasping the true power of a god. The ergo attached to him then activates, he becomes even more powerful, and he is now Simon, the awakened god. He's been upgraded too, and now has an even stronger bag of tricks. Despite this, P eventually bests him in combat. Afterwards, dying Simon asks P what he did for Sophia, but he says being able to read people's minds is a curse, and if it wasn't for Sophia, he wouldn't have been able to bear it. The purity of Sophia's heart was a tonic for his pain, and he used the ergo to hold her there. After this conversation, and after Simon has been defeated, he has one last thing to do. Using the elevator, P descends and sees Geppetto there. He tells P that they have all the ingredients they need, and he says that he's been dreaming of this moment for a long time. The moment someone would come back to life. He tells P that he can become human again, and this can be done by using a huge supply of ergo and the relic, the Arm of God. Geppetto says that he just needs the final ingredient, P's heart. If he does, then all the trials and tribulations will be over, and he says that to reward P, he will turn him into a real boy. So again, P has a choice. For the game's bad ending, P agrees to give Geppetto his heart. He says that he always believed in P, with him being the greatest puppet he'd ever made. He thanks P, embracing him, and then rips P's heart out of his chest. Opening a box, he places the heart into another puppet, and afterwards, back in Hotel Krat, Geppetto stands outside and is approached by a brand new P. Well, it's not P, it's his son Carlo, who at one point had died from the petrification disease, and who P's image is based upon. After the game's end, if P gave his heart to Geppetto, P can check Geppetto's desk and finds a letter. He plans to stabilize Krat by getting the puppet and the petrification disease under control. He warns P about being careful with his body as he reacts to ergo. This is due to the Arm of God. P is told to stay safe inside the hotel. If, on the other hand, P refuses, Geppetto is angry, tells P he's broken his heart, and then says that he's the puppet that will bring his son Carlo back to life. He goes over to the box. Removing his glove, he reveals that his arm has a way of using the power of ergo. He uses it to control another puppet, which rises out of the box, the Nameless puppet. Controlling the Nameless puppet, he uses it to fight P. Eventually, during the fight, P and the Nameless puppet come together, and P aims a swing, chopping off part of the Nameless puppet's head. Unfortunately, this doesn't weaken him, it strengthens him. This is because Geppetto's control of the Nameless is now broken. Holding his own against a very tough enemy, the Nameless puppet goes to stab P in the heart, but Geppetto, realizing that P's heart is crucial for the resurrection of Carlo, sacrifices himself, and the Nameless puppet kills him. P then thrusts his arm through the Nameless puppet's chest, killing him. For what is considered the best ending, the same thing happens as in the good ending. However, if P has accumulated enough humanity throughout his journey, after the fight and after Geppetto sacrifices himself, P will shed a tear. He's pretty much human at this point. He then, after Geppetto has died, returns to the top of the tower and sees a blue butterfly flying around. If P's humanity is high enough for his hair to have grown and turned grey, he places Sophia's ergo into a puppet, allowing her to live on, and the credits then roll. Post-credits, a scene takes place. A man in a top hat called Paracelsus sits in a chair aboard a train. He speaks of having an update on the Krat experiment, referring to P as a new type of humanity. The woman he's speaking to says that eternal life can take many forms, and it's revealed that their experiments will continue. Paracelsus mentions that they have other experiments available, other keys, and he mentions one, Dorothy. Back in Krat, a girl wearing red shoes taps her heels together, hinting at a potential sequel set amongst the world of Wizard of Oz. The game then ends. Alright, as mentioned, that's a pretty surface-level explanation of what the plot is, but let's now jump into the DLC Overture, whose events take place before all this had even happened. Upon going to the stargazer in the hotel, he receives something called a star's chrysalis. When holding it, he has a mysterious vision of a tarnished and golden stargazer. Remembering that he'd seen one on his journey from Krat, he goes to the pilgrim's path by the cathedral and he approaches the stargazer. Using the star's chrysalis, the stargazer is renewed, and touching it, he goes to another place in Krat. Fighting his way through more carcasses, which are animals along with former humans, he eventually reaches a snowy hillside and looks out, seeing Krat Zoo nearby. Generally pipes out and thinks it's strange, especially since Krat Zoo had already burned down. Why is it not destroyed? It seems intact. Approaching the zoo, there are monstrous animals which have been infected. They are incredibly hostile and attack him, so he puts them down and enters the zoo itself. So a bit about the zoo. The zoo was built by the heroic explorer Colonel Little. It's said that Colonel Little slew a giant lion alongside his companion, a crocodile called Rex. It was after that he built the zoo in order to share his adventures. But back to it. On the second floor balcony, he finds a dying man there bleeding out. He initially thinks that P is Madame Stalker. He then realizes that P is not her, saying that he thought she had returned to save him. He describes the Stalker as having red hair and says that she helped him escape. He speaks of a bounty, and then it blinded him. He found a clue, something at the Savannah Experience Center in the zoo, and he hands P a missing person poster. It's Bob Romeo. The man dies, so P leaves, and makes his way to the Savannah Experience Center, fighting more monstrosities on the way. Gemini says that it's possible that the Golden Stargazer had sent them back in time. He says that he remembers a day when snow was falling on the zoo. Having reached the Savannah Experience Center, he makes his way through the center, which shows signs of the red-haired stalker having passed through here. Before being able to leave the area, he is forced into a confrontation with a tyrannical predator, a very large and aggressive crocodile which has been completely overtaken by the petrification disease. Managing to kill it, he pushes forward and comes across a puppet with an arch. It says that its eternal master rules the zoo, someone called Markiona, and that P cannot enter without her permission. Attempting to enter a door marked Carnival, it appears that they need a key to do so. P goes off in search of the key in the nearest building, which is the greenhouse. Markiona addresses him again. It does seem that Markiona isn't actually addressing P at all, but someone else. Perhaps the red-haired stalker. Anyway, battling his way through Markiona's puppets, he eventually circles round and enters a room. Inside, he finds some alchemists there, dead, and generally states that he recognizes the killer's handiwork. This is the work of the legendary stalker. Her calling cards are the numerous petals by the bodies.
Boom! So
he then
fucking
finds a
amazing.
recording from the legendary stalker, and it's a